Ambassador, I'd like to ask you, the Jammu-Kashmir dispute, are you relieved there's a ceasefire at the moment?
Yes, of course, we are relieved that the ceasefire has happened. This is a war that we did not ask for. It was imposed on us. And as a sovereign nation, a very proud nation, we had no choice but to respond to the aggression that came from our neighboring country.
Can you give us a background to the Jammu-Kashmir dispute, please?
Yes, just for your audience to understand the context of the current conflict. The Jammu and Kashmir dispute goes all the way back to 1947, at the time when Pakistan gained its independence and the partition of India took place from the British colonial rule. Jammu and Kashmir is a disputed territory. It is a political dispute between our two countries that has been going on since over 7 decades. It started soon after our independence, when illegally the Indian government at that time sent its troops into Jammu and Kashmir to take over forcibly and occupy it against the criteria and the principle established for the partition of different states in the undivided India at the time of partition. So the brave people of Jammu and Kashmir has been fighting for their political rights since that time. There are multiple resolutions by the UN Security Council since 1948 that the final settlement of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute remains to be taken in consultation with the aspirations and the wishes of the people of Kashmir. However, India has been reluctant to fulfill the requirements of the UN Security Council resolution, and since 2019 has illegally and unilaterally annexed Jammu and Kashmir. So this is an ongoing political dispute. And as you all know in Ireland, that all political disputes have to be resolved by a political dialogue and not through war or aggression. I think it is so easy to explain to our Irish friends that since they have made so many sacrifices in the Northern Ireland dispute and the peace process that finally culminated in the Good Friday Agreement 25 years ago, it had to be done through a political dialogue and through mediation. And that is what we seek. We believe that the final settlement of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute remains to be done and can only be done through a dialogue process.
In your opinion, as a seasoned diplomat, why do you think this conflict began now?
So you see, it is unprecedented in the history of this world to have one nuclear state attack another nuclear state with missiles and fighter jets, which India has done in this present conflict, which we are, of course, shocked at it. And the world should take note of it also. Under a nuclear overhang, it is inconceivable and absurd for one nuclear power, knowing fully well the capacity of its neighboring country, to launch an attack, which they think they could do in the conventional arms space. I think 2 things happened. One, the government of India underestimated the capacity and the resolve of the government of Pakistan, the Pakistani military, and the people of Pakistan to stand up and respond to protect their sovereignty and their country. So they underestimated us. 2, I think they misread the international community's mood. And they probably, I can only assume, they think that the time is ripe for them to take unilateral actions against Pakistan to establish a precedent that whenever there is a terrorist attack anywhere in India, so without any evidence, without any inquiry, they can immediately blame Pakistan and send fighter jets across the international border into Pakistani cities. That is a precedent that is completely unacceptable to us. And the response from Pakistan was made to establish that any such new normal that the government of India plans to establish is not accepted by the people of Pakistan. And therefore, we gave back more than what we got.
Do you think India has invested heavily in building its global image and making it easier to control those international narratives that you just referred to? Meanwhile, Pakistan, especially after the 9/11 and the war in Afghanistan, how do you think the projection of image, and why is that important, or is it important in your opinion, to a global audience?
Well, you see, for one, we live in a very tough neighborhood. We've had war in Afghanistan since over 4 decades. And a lot of blowback from that war against terror in Afghanistan came into Pakistan. And our people have suffered greatly for that for decades. The number of lives that we have lost runs into tens of thousands. The economic opportunities and the losses in material terms that we have suffered runs into billions of dollars. So, our nation has gone through a lot. International projection, international branding, image control is all very good and serves a purpose, I would think, in terms of building a certain reputation and a certain perception. And yes, India has been successful in many ways in building that perception and putting out its soft power. But we have seen in this particular conflict that the international image of India could not withstand when push came to shove. So in the present conflict, to give you an example, I think that international reputation of India has taken a big hit in our view. And a big hit on 3 levels. Indian media's reputation has really been exposed for putting out an entire disinformation campaign that had nothing to do with the reality of the conflict and what was happening in Pakistan. Just to give you an example, on the 10th of May, Indian media put out a lot of, on mainstream channel, that the Karachi port had been overtaken, the Prime Minister of Pakistan had been taken to a shelter, the Chief of the Army Staff had been arrested. To the audience in Pakistan, who were, of course, the citizens of Pakistan, were keenly watching what was happening in real time, this was absolutely absurd, because no such thing was happening in the streets and cities of Pakistan. It was all very calm. And as if they were in a parallel universe, it was quite absurd. So Indian media has really been exposed. That's one. The other is that when the Pahalgam attack happened on the 22nd of April, which triggered this outbreak of conflict between our 2 countries, one of the immediate steps that the Indian government took was to suspend the Indus Water Treaty. Indus Water Treaty, just for your audience to know, was signed between our 2 countries in 1960, brokered by the World Bank, to allocate the share of water of the rivers that flow from the mighty Indus, according to which the 3 western rivers flow into Pakistan and the 3 eastern rivers flow into India. And there is no provision in the treaty to unilaterally suspend the treaty and to use water as a weapon of war. So the reputation of India as a peacemaker, as a country that wants to resolve its disputes through dialogue, as a country that acts in a rational manner, have been blown to smithereens. No nuclear power can act in such an irrational manner and send BrahMos missiles, ballistic missiles, into another nuclear state. So that has really damaged India's reputation. And I think the third is that for every call for international mediation, India has been reluctant and has been outrightly rejecting. And to your question as to why it happened now, is because I think the international community is not unaware of Pakistan's capacity and the fact that we are a nuclear state. And if our bases are going to be hit, which they were on the night of 10th May, we were going to respond. And it was going into an uncharted territory. And if the international community did not wake up to the dangers of it, clearly India was not. It's absurd that it did not realize the consequences of the decisions that they were taking and the targets that they were choosing. But the international community was alive to the danger that lay ahead. And that's why there was this flurry of activity and outreach to both India and Pakistan, which, by the way, the Indian government reached out to the United States to mediate a ceasefire, and we accepted that. Because, as I said earlier, we did not ask for this war. It was imposed on us. And therefore, we only responded in self-defense, for which we have every right.
So I think we're coming up on near the 30th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement in Ireland. So what is the main lesson that India and Pakistan can draw from that? Is it like more international mediation, or and secondly, what does that give you optimism for sort of a much more long-term resolution to this problem?
I think it's very clear, and history teaches us that all conflicts are eventually resolved at the negotiating table. There is no alternative to dialogue and for talks to resolve political disputes. Jammu and Kashmir is not about real estate. It's not about property. It's not about territorial gain. Usually India frames it in those terms. But for us, it's a political dispute. It is the unfinished agenda of the partition of India and the independence of Pakistan. And therefore, as you would know, and people in Ireland would know, that political disputes eventually have to be resolved politically. And for that, there has to be a mechanism for talks. Since the past 10 years almost, there is no bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan. India is averse to any bilateral talks. India is averse to any third party or international mediation. And therefore, we are at a dead end in terms of that. That is an unsustainable situation between two nuclear capable countries that have no dialogue mechanism in a time of crisis such as what we have just gone through. So yes, absolutely, there has to be a dialogue, and there are UN Security Council resolutions that are there. The UN is a natural mediator. International powers are. It is in the interest of global peace and security to resolve the Jammu and Kashmir dispute once and for all, so that there is no repetition of what happened at Pahalgam and the subsequent actions that the government of India took against Pakistan.
In your opinion, is the ceasefire going to hold, do you think?
Well, we hope that the ceasefire holds. Of course, as I said, we do not wish war in our country, in our region. The world cannot afford another conflict. So we hope that sanity prevails and the ceasefire holds, and that India, we hope, has learnt a lesson, and that kind of adventurism in our region and into Pakistan is something that they should not be thinking of repeating again.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.